Hi, good day. This is Miss LM and we're back again for another math video. And today we're going to talk more about the conditional statements or the if-then statements. So in this video, we're going to learn how to transform conditional statements into its if-then form. And also, you're going to learn how to use Venn diagram when it comes to conditional statements. So first, let's have this transforming conditional statement into its if-then form. So now, how are we going to transform conditional statements into its if-then form? So to write it in a conditional statement, identify the sentence hypothesis and conclusion by figuring out which part of the statement depends on the other. So that means what we have learned from independent and dependent variables can be applied here. If clause or the hypotheses are the independent variables while the then clause or Q or conclusion is our dependent variable. Remember that, okay? Independent variable is our hypothesis and then our conclusion is our dependent variable. First example, a triangle with one right angle is a right triangle. So, alin kaya dito ang cause at effect? Alin kaya dito ang independent at dependent variable? For the hypothesis on our first conditional statement, the triangle or a triangle has one right angle. So, ito po yun, yung ating unang nabanggit na condition. And then, the conclusion is that kapag daw meron tayong one right angle dun sa ating triangle, then it is a right triangle. So, the triangle is a right triangle. So, hypothesis conclusion, identify na natin, we can form the if-then form. If the triangle or if a triangle has one right angle, then it is a right triangle. So, from here, a triangle with one right angle is a right triangle magiging if a triangle or if the triangle has one right angle, then it is a right triangle. Okay, next, a rectangle has two pairs of parallel sides. If the figure is a rectangle, therefore, it has two parallel sides. Hypothesis is that the figure is a rectangle or the shape is a rectangle. Then for the conclusion, it has two pairs of parallel sides. To write its if-then form, we're going to combine these two by adding the word if and adding the word then. So we have if the figure is a rectangle, then it has two pairs of parallel sides. So first, you have to know the hypothesis, then the conclusion, then para mabuo yung if-then form, gagamit tayo ng word na if at gagamit tayo ng word na then. Okay? Let's proceed to our example number 3. Okay, so for example number 3, we have here good citizens obey rules and regulations. So what will be our independent variable here? Di po ba yung good citizen is an independent variable? Then for our dependent variable, syempre kung good citizen ka, malamang nag-obey ka ng rules and regulations. So that will be our conclusion. But how are we going to write that as our hypothesis and conclusion? So hypothesis, a person is a good citizen or they are good citizens. Then, conclusion, they obey rules and regulations. So, you can use they or you can use you. The most important terms here is that ang ating good citizens ay nasa hypothesis. And ang conclusion natin, nandun yung obey rules and regulations. So, for the if-then form, again, gagamit tayo ng if at saka ng then. If they are good citizens, then they obey rules and regulations. Or, pwede naman po yung you. If you are a good citizen, then you obey rules and regulations. So, pwede po yun. Number 4, all even numbers are divisible by 2. Again, all even numbers are divisible by 2. What will be our hypothesis here? Ang nabanggit na dalawang condition here is that meron tayong even numbers at saka divisible by 2. So, for the hypothesis, syempre, kung ikaw ay even numbers, automatically, madi-divide ka naman talaga by 2. So, that will be our hypothesis. We have here, the number is even number, or a number is even. And then, for the conclusion, it is divisible by 2. Or the number is divisible by 2. Now, for the if-then form, what will be our if-then form here? We have, if a number is even, then it is divisible by 2. That will be our if-then form for our example number 4. Or you can also write as, the number is divisible by 2 if a number is even. So, another form po yun ng if-then form kung inyo pong natatandaan sa ating previous video and example on what is if-then form of the conditional statement. So, we can write it as that also. The number is divisible by 2 if the number is even. Okay? Let's have our example number 5 and 6. For our fifth example, two angles that are complementary are acute. So, what will be our hypothesis? Remember, hypothesis are independent variable. So, that is, two angles are complementary. And then for the conclusion, that is, two angles are acute. Okay? So, for the if-then form, maglalagay lang tayo ng if sa unahan ng hypothesis, then sa unahan ng conclusion. So, we're going to form the if-then form as if two angles are complementary, then they are acute. So, from the original conditional statement, two angles that are complementary are acute, naging if two angles are complementary, then they are acute. Then for our last example, all perfect square numbers are positive. So what will be our hypothesis? The independent variable, and that is itong ating perfect square numbers. So a number that is perfect square, or the numbers that are perfect squares. So conclusion, the number is positive. The if-then form, that will be if a number is a perfect square, then it is positive. Okay, or if the numbers are perfect square, then they are positive. So we can also use that. So that's our 6 examples on how to transform conditional statements to its if-then form. So you can also try it here by answering this learning task. So identify first the hypothesis and conclusion, then transform it into its if-then form. So I have here 5 items. You can try it on your own. You can pause this video for a while, write it on your notebook, and then do it on your own. Okay, now let's proceed to Venn diagram in conditional statements. How are we going to use Venn diagram in conditional statements? And do you even remember what Venn diagram is? So remember this. The inner oval represents the hypothesis and the outer oval represents the conclusion. So yung mas maliit daw po, yun yung ating hypothesis. Nandun dapat yung hypothesis, then the conclusion will be the outer oval. Okay? Tandaan po, the inner oval, hypothesis, outer oval, conclusion. So, let's have this example. So, from this Venn diagram, ang nasa loob po or inner oval ay ang blue jays. And the outer oval, nandun po yung birds. So, inner oval, hypothesis, so that will be the animals are blue jays. Then, for the conclusion, the animals are birds. Now, how are we going to form the if-then form? So, if the animals are blue jays, then they are birds. Animals po ay plural, so we have to use they. Again, inner oval, hypothesis, outer oval, conclusion. That is why ito po yung nabuo nating if-then form. If the animals are blue jays, then they are birds. You can use words that will satisfy these terms also. Siyempre, alangan namang sabihin nating things yan or trees yan. Eh, birds and blue jays naman po ay animals talaga. So, we have to use that properly. Another example, we have here this Venn diagram. Again, Cavite and Calabarzon. Inner oval will be the hypothesis and outer oval is our conclusion. Now, we can use terms that will satisfy these two terms here. Pwede tayong mag-isip, ano nga bang pwedeng i-relate kay Cavite and kay Calabarzon to write our hypothesis and to write our conclusion para mabuo na rin natin yung if-then form. So, for example, you live in Cavite. Then, you are from Calabarzon. So, if-then form will be, if you live in Cavite, then you are from Calabarzon. So, you can add any statement there, basta po nandun si Cavite's hypothesis and then yung Calabarzon dun sa ating conclusion. Okay? So, the if-then form na nabuo from the Venn diagram is that if you live in Cavite, then you are from Calabarzon. Another example. So, given naman dito ang hypothesis and conclusion, tayo naman na maglalagay sa Venn diagram. So, ito mas madali. The number is an integer and then the number is real number. So, if we're going to form the Venn diagram, integer and real number, so the inner oval have the integer and then the outer oval, nandun naman yung real numbers. So, yan po yung ating Venn diagram for this conditional statement. Okay, last example we have here, you eat squash, you eat vegetable. If you eat squash, then you eat vegetable. Okay, so how are we going to form the Venn diagram for this one? Ang pinag-uusapan sa hypothesis ay ang squash and then sa conclusion, vegetable. So, the inner oval has the squash and then outer oval, nandun naman yung ating vegetable. So, mas madali kapag tayo yung magagawa ng Venn diagram. Unlike dun sa given si Venn diagram, tayo yung mag-iisip ng ating hypothesis and conclusion. Kasi doon, magkakaiba-iba talaga kayo. So, there are many possible answers kapag given ang Venn diagram at kayo yung magbibigay ng hypothesis and conclusion as long as alam natin kung alin dun sa Venn diagram yung ating hypothesis at alin ang ating conclusion. Remember, the inner oval ang ating hypothesis, and the outer oval will be our conclusion. Okay, so now you can try this activity. You have to illustrate the following conditional statements in Venn diagram. Just remember, the inner oval will have the hypothesis and the outer oval will have the conclusion. Okay, so pause this video for a while, copy the given conditional statements, and illustrate it into Venn diagram. Okay, so that's all for this video. I hope you learned something about transforming conditional statement into its if-then form and also how to form the conditional statements into Venn diagram. Do not forget to subscribe, to like this video, and comment down below kung ano nga ba ang natutunan nyo dito sa ating video na ito. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye!